Hi, so in this video, I want to continue on and talk about a few things and talk about a few things on the framework, light color array, and talk about some things, okay? So, yeah, so let's start. So the first thing I want to talk about, and this is uh, kind of connected to the previous video. So, like for example, sometimes when I say, there are times when I say you, like in the previous video I said you can imagine. By you I mean me, it's just a figure of speech, okay? So I thought I would clarify that because I don't know if that how ambiguous that was. So it's a figure of speech. By you I mean me. That doesn't mean every single time I say the word you it's me, but it's that figure of speech that there are times when I use that, okay? So I just thought I would clarify that. So, like I was talking about the ways I can imagine certain things, okay, and certain original concepts. So, yeah, in original ways with original names and so on. Okay, so just wanted to make that quick clarification. The next point, I guess, I want to talk about is with the currency. I talked about Lyra. This is kind of connected to Libra, which is uh, and Libra, that's one, and the other thing is I talked about Temple of Venus, so temple. So Libra and temple. Um, there is uh, these words are derived from the Latin language, so I just wanted to point that out. Uh, the Latin, uh, I guess you could say, origin, I guess, of temple and Libra. So wanted to point that out quickly about the language. And again, another thing I want to say is I would I would like to create a language for this. Now this would be a huge endeavor to create a language, but I think the way I want to create and imagine this language is I want it to sound really beautiful. I want it to have lots of possibilities in the way that all the possibilities that it can create, and the interactions and the ways of interactions, the way it can happen in this language. And I want this language to be poetic, which allows for a really amazing way of poetic speech and an interesting kind of concepts about poetry in the language itself. And again, I want this language to have lots of possibilities with humor in the way that this language can be spoken, which can be humorous. So there can be so many things in the language and the way these things are arranged and spoken, and they relate to each other and they interact with each other. It can create lots of poetry and humor. So that's how I would like to imagine this language to be. And another thing about this is, like I said, I want it to sound really beautiful. The way the sounds that are used, I wanted to have lots of, a whole array of sounds, and the way beautiful words and beautiful sounds that exist in this language. It would add to the poetry, it would add to the humor. The sounds itself would relate to the meanings of the sounds in the sense that, yeah, it would be um, I guess, um, how would I say this? It would synergize with itself, and it would create that powerful effect when the language is spoken. It can be very poetic, it can be humorous, it can create lots of great moments, it can sound beautiful. So there are a lot of possibilities in which all of these things can be um, put into this language, and so many various ways of communication in the way that interactions can happen in languages. It doesn't have to be um, so simplistic. There can be intuitive communications that can happen in language in very quick and rapid sort of way, and interactive sort of way that these communications can happen. So this would be a very unique interesting, beautiful, poetic, humorous language. It wouldn't be dull, it wouldn't be dry, it would be an amazing experience just to have a conversation in this language because of how unique and fun it is just to communicate because of all these interactions. Okay, I'm finding it a bit hard to explain what I mean by that. Okay, it's there are intuitive interactions in this. The sounds explain what is being said, or uh, the sounds relate to what is being said, or the sounds themselves communicate what is being said, and then the thing that is said is also said. So that kind of explains what I'm, in a very basic sense, what I'm trying to get at. Okay, this is intuitive in that way. It is beautiful. It is eloquent. There is, imagine the eloquence of, imagine how sometimes if such a language can go over the top and be humorous. Imagine how beautiful poetry, how many layers of poetry can be in this language. So many possibilities. The language, when you say something, you say it. The words themselves say what is being said, and you say it, and the other person responds with intuition, and it says what you said. That other person says what you said. I'm trying to explain what I mean by this. Okay, so there are layers. There is synergy. There is intuition. There is beauty and humor. Okay, so that's how I would want this language. I would want to imagine this language. I think it would be a really amazing and fun experience just to speak, just to communicate in this language. So yeah, that's something I wanted to say. I still haven't talked about what I guess you would really see it when you see this in action when I do this. Okay, so I'll see how I can get into this. Okay, but I wanted to talk about this. I think this is so interesting in the way that communication can be so beautiful. It can be so fun. Saying a simple thing in this language could be said in such interesting ways that it would be fun to say a simple thing because it was said in such an interesting way that a simple thing became so interesting. There was some layer to it. There was, maybe you can say very simple things in over the top kind of ways, which becomes really humorous. So yeah, that's how I would want to imagine it. And of course, poetry would explain so many things that are just left unsaid. So many times I find it difficult to say things because there is just no word. I don't know if it would necessarily be done with words. It would be done with poetry. It would be done with intuition. Many of these concepts that are very hard to describe in words, in certain ways of intuition, they can be described, certain ways of poetry. And I would want this language to have those kind of possibilities where that kind of poetry can be intuitively transmitted with this language. So I think there is lots of really interesting and fun possibilities. Okay, so I'll talk more about it uh, as I work on this. Okay, so I thought this was an interesting thing to work on. Okay, so yeah, that was the language part. Okay, so the next point. This is something I want to add to the arcs. So this is um, in a mental and physical um, sense. This is speed and accuracy. So imagine mental speed, mental accuracy, that rapid way of just sharp way of going through certain things, certain concepts. Okay, so that mental speed, mental accuracy. Again, physical speed, physical accuracy. Like I talked about before, being agile. Okay, so that is something I wanted to add to the arcs. So that was speed and accuracy. I'm not necessarily putting them both together. I thought I would just talk about them both together because it kind of makes sense. Okay, so that is to the arcs. Okay, I want to add another thing to the arcs, and this is metaphysical. I guess I'm not sure if I want to use this word, but I'll use it anyway. Okay, so this is metaphysical piety. The word I'm not sure if I want to use is piety, okay, not metaphysical, okay? That hopefulness, that hope in metaphysics, that hope in a way of metaphysically um, looking forward to something, okay, that you, in a sense, have that metaphysical piety in the sense that you know that this is right, in a way that you you follow the beautiful light of a divine, um, I don't know how to say it, but a divine light, I guess that's how I would say it. Okay, so that is the arc of metaphysical, and I'm using this word. I'm not sure if I want to use this word, but piety. So metaphysical piety. Okay, so yeah. So I want to add another thing to the arcs, and this is I've talked about this. Just wanted to add something very quickly. So this was health glow, like I talked about. When you're in great health, that glow just, it's really beautiful and very direct beauty in that glow. So I would say it's that um, health bloom in the way that health can really make our minds, make our bodies bloom in that way, and they become they have that health glow. So again, just wanted to quickly talk about that. Okay, and it's very beautiful. It's that health, that bloom, it is captivating, it's beautiful, it is so direct, and you notice it and it just captivates you. Just to see that glow, to see that bloom, I think it's really beautiful. Okay, so that is health glow. So the next thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about certain things about the VTOLs that I've talked about. Okay, so with these VTOLs and their controls, I want to say I want to completely reimagine uh, the way all the things work in these VTOLs. Okay, so no need to. I don't want to be conventional with this. I want to make this interesting. I want to make this fun. I want to make it very intuitive and very, in a very beautiful and fun sense, interactive. Okay, so controlling these VTOLs and the way they, and in the sense that they would perform crisp operations. So the way they would work is with that intuitive controls, with that intuitive um, agility that these VTOLs would possess. It would, running operations with these VTOLs would be very fun and, yeah, uh, an enjoyable experience. So the controls, for example, all the various interfaces that would exist between the pilot and the VTOL. So it would be very, it would really enhance the experience of the aviator. Okay, so it would be fun and intuitive, and, yeah, a new reimagined way of flying. Okay, so that's just quickly something I wanted to say. And the next point I want to talk about is when I talked about various modes of illustration of this entire framework. So I talked about, like, for example, panels. I talked about three-dimensional physical models. I talked about video scenes or video, I guess, yeah, various scenes with various characters in real, real people, and in various scenes. I talked about a type of simulator or a video game sort of thing, where these things can be controlled, and these things can be, a narrative can form with these controls, where the player creates the narrative in a sense, in the way that the player wants to imagine and it gives the player that control, that the player can do whatever whatever he or she feels like at that time. Okay, so I thought that would be so again, it would be an interesting simulator, I guess. And but so these were and apart from that, I talked about the various panels and the decorations, and like I said, the way of imagining these panels, the visual illustrations of these panels, and which I've described, beautiful, colored, three-dimensional, dazzling ways of imagining them. So apart from that, I also want to say that the way I'm describing these things, it can also be imagined in this sense, because right now I'm explaining the same thing, so it can also be taken as this. So there are various modes of communication, of various modes of expression, various modes of illustration of this. Okay, so it can, again, this is a layered sort of. So when there are multiple ways that this is illustrated, I think it creates a very nice layered meaning to all of these things that I've talked about, especially with, I think it would be very interesting um, to put these things in control in a simulator video game sort of thing and let it play out, see how individuals can create interesting, unique narratives and interactions. I think it would be very interesting, and it would create lots of possibilities. And with the VTOLs, like I talked about, it would be, imagine the aviation themes and the fun things that can be done with all these VTOLs and aeroplanes. So I thought this would be an interesting, again, just wanted to quickly point out all the various possibilities with the modes of illustration of this, okay, of this framework, okay. So yeah, I think that's kind of it with the things that I wanted to talk about in this video. I'll add more things as I come up with more stuff. So yeah, that's it for this video. And yeah, let me know what you think. And is there anything else? Um, Whatever, if there is, I'll add it in the next videos, okay? So yeah, I think that's it for this video. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next videos. Okay.